actually the second educators in your children's life because you are the first teachers. And we want to work in partnership with all of you because we can't do this work alone.
Que su voz cuenta y que si nos unimos podemos lograr grandes cosas para nuestros hijos.
I love the diversity of the school district. Whether you know it or not, this district speaks 83 different languages.
To know that the administrative offices, they have my back. Not only my back, but they have my child's back.
Every child, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of income, regardless of need, every child deserves to have their needs met.
No one person can do it alone. The teachers can't do it alone. Administration cannot do it alone. It's going to take the parents, the community.
I'm very thankful for the partnerships that we have with our communities in both cities that represent our school district. We always ask the question, how can we even do this better? And I think that's where community schools come in because that takes us to the next level.
Welcome to the October 5th meeting of the Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board of Trustees. Let's see, Superintendent, will you take the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mr. Huey?
Here.
Ms. Larrett?
Here.
Ms. Lofthouse? Here. Mr. Reed?
Aye.
All
Are
are
here. That too. All right, let's see. We will be going into closed session for the following items. Student matters, and in particular, an expulsion recommendation, case number 2324-1S. Employer-employee relations matters, conference with legal counsel regarding litigation, conference with real property negotiators, and personnel matters. Is there anyone here for public comment on the closed session items? Online? No? Okay. We will be back in open session at 6 p.m. sharp. Until that time, we will stand at recess. Good evening. Welcome to the October 5th meeting of the Folsom Cordova Unified School District School Board. We're going to open the meeting this evening in the memory of Michelle McDonald, fifth grade teacher at Russell Ranch Elementary, who passed away last night. She's been an employee of our district since 2006. If you'd please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A broadcast and recording is being made at the direction of the board, and the broadcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board Policy 1313 promotes mutual respect, civility, and orderly conduct among employees, parents, and the public. We will treat staff, parents, and members of the public with respect and expect the same in return. If any member of the public uses obscenities or communicates in a demanding, loud, insulting, or demeaning manner, the board will calmly and politely admonish the person to communicate civilly. Public comments during board meetings are an important component of public engagement and transparency. Members of the public will not be permitted to yield their speaking time to another member of the public. All written comments submitted by 3 p.m. today to the board have been read. Per the Brown Act, the board is not allowed to enter into two-way discussion on any matter not on the agenda. Superintendent, will you take the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Mellijour?
Here.
Mr. Merrill?
Here.
Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mr. Hui?
Here.
Ms. Larrett?
Here.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Here.
Mr. Reed?
Here.
We're counted for. Thank you.
All right, item 5, reporting out of closed session. Superintendent?
We have no action to report out of closed session.
Thank you. Item 6, adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Motion by Board Member Clark. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Lofthouse. Superintendent?
Mr. Mellijour?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, item 7, special presentations. I don't believe we have any this evening.
We don't have any this evening.
All right. That takes us to item 8, public comment. This is the point in time that if a member of the public wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, this is the point in the agenda you are able to do so. If you are here to speak on an item of the agenda, we will have public comment for each agendized item. Superintendent, I believe you had some opening remarks before we get into.
Yes, I just wanted to recognize that those that are here tonight that are in support of our student and our family and would like to express any of those comments, we want you to know that as a board, we're up here, we're listening, but during public comment, we're not allowed to respond. But we are listening, and our first priority is for the well-being of our students and making sure that our families are also feeling comfortable in the placement of our students at their schools. Thank you.
All right. Public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Jacob Locke, and I've been with the district for 10 years now at Cordova High School. And I just want to let you know that we're here today because we love our district and we love our students. So want to get that across. So I hope that we could all agree that our community deserves the very best. Our parents expect the best for their children, rightfully so. However, how can we recruit and retain the best when other districts offer a far superior compensation package? Many of our members have their own kids to feed and clothe. So as much as they love this district, and it breaks their heart, some of them have to leave. And I've seen that happen at my own site, and it's been really hard. Teaching is not a job where you just show up, complete the task at hand, and go home. Most of us work well beyond our contractual hours, grading, lesson planning, and modifying assignments for our students with special learning needs. We wear many hats, and more expectations are piled on us each and every year. We have taken on the roles of social workers, counselors, special ed teachers, English teachers, English as a second language teacher, and yes, even security guards at times. We have put our own bodies on the line. I know teachers personally here that have done that multiple times. I did that a couple weeks ago to protect our students. We go above and beyond each and every day. Giving us an offer that matches the surrounding districts in the area just simply says that we appreciate you. It says that we respect the work that you do, and it says that we want to keep the very best, which is you guys. So that's all I want to say, just out of respect, that we just ask that you guys come to the bargaining table and give us a better offer than what's been offered so far. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I apologize. Was that Jacob Luke that just locked? Okay, all right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other member of the public? Anybody online?
Yes, we have 2. James?
Okay, James, welcome.
Great.
Hi, I'm James Garcia, resident in Rancho Cordova. I just wanted to speak out about the upcoming plans for a new school in Rancho Cordova, particularly a high school and a middle school that's planned currently, I guess, for 2034 to 2037, and feel that that's a little too late for us, since there is a Measure M bond money that is going to be exhausted by 2029 for our SPID number 3 area. There's supposed to be 6 schools, 1 middle school, and a high school planned to be built over in the Rio del Oro area of Rancho Cordova. But right now we are suffering from overcrowded schools, such as the Cordova High. We have 1 high school that's in Rancho Cordova. Feel that there's a little bit of a disparity between Rancho Cordova and Folsom. There are 2 cities equally justifiable to have proper education. Rancho Cordova has kind of been considered the stepchild of the school district, in my opinion, as well as a lot of the residents here in Rancho Cordova, in that we get the hand-me-down products. Our high school received hand-me-down weights from Folsom High School instead of receiving new ones for themselves. There are 2 state-of-the-art high schools in Folsom, Folsom High and Vista del Lago. Our high school is 60 years old. We need to have equality for all of our residents here and all of our students. Don't want to have that. Our city council has had to actually perform additional funds to purchase lockers for our school instead of the school doing it. As well as heaters for when our schools didn't have sufficient heating due to old boiler systems, as well as when a school was shut down and sold off, the money did not come back to our schools here in Rancho Cordova. The money disappeared. We don't know where it went. So it's something that we feel our children deserve the best, just like Folsom, equality everywhere. We have an awful lot of minorities that are here, and they are being bypassed at this point in time. Our schools are overcrowded. Some of our students are actually already traveling up to Folsom instead of being here. If you were to build a school here, so we are equal in having 2 schools, our students can return locally instead of having to be transported up to Folsom. It would be of a benefit for all of us here. So I really hope that you reconsider, think about it. When I grew up, there was a promise of a high school over in the Rosemont area. It took over 20 years for that school to be built. So it was not in my lifetime. I would like it to be in the children of this day and age, it's lifetime to actually have a school built for them to attend. That's all for now. I do appreciate the time, and hopefully you'll take this under consideration when you have your meeting again on Monday for facilities.
Thank you. Jasmine, welcome. You have to unmute.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Jasmine Bronson. I am the best friend of Ebony McNeil, and I have known Esion Graham since he was born. I just wanted to make a comment on basically the abuse that he experienced while he was attending Williamson High School. It's extremely disheartening to hear that a child, especially a special needs child, has been treated, in such unfair conduct since the beginning of the school year. It was not just one incident. There's been multiple kind of things happening at Williamson Elementary by Amber McGiffin since the beginning of the school year. And I really hope that you continue or start cooperating with Ebony and this process so we can bring justice for Esion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Okay. And I do have one more card for Lorraine Pryor. Welcome.
Well, I did want to wait until the mom had a chance to tell you all about her experiences within your district. But my name is Laureen Pryor with Black Youth Leadership Project. I am the advocate, one of the advocates for ECON. And what he experienced on your campus was atrocious. I just heard the teachers get up and say they want you to retain the very best. What you had in the classroom with ECON was not reflective of your best. I expect more from professionals, especially if they are going to school to deal with special needs children. I expect them to comport themselves as professionals. I should never have to come into a school district and hear that your teachers have put their hands on children who cannot defend themselves, children who cannot speak. And she put her hands on this child. Not only did she slap him in his face, she restrained him. I want you to show me in your policies where that's applicable. I don't know what is happening in this district. When I hear a parent, they say they weren't notified until 3 days after this incident. That's unacceptable. There was no paperwork given to this parent to tell her or detail for her what exactly happened to her child. Unacceptable. And then when she gets the information about her child, she goes to your school, you barricade her child in a classroom. That is not reflective of your very best. So I want to know why when this parent went to get their child, you decided to weaponize law enforcement. What are we doing? Why are we doing that? And if you wonder why you continue to have problems with Black families in this district, this is why. You don't know how to talk to them. You don't know how to give them the information they're requesting. And sometimes it's not until somebody like me comes in the room where I'm able to get the information because I know the right questions to ask. You should be ashamed of yourselves. And as teachers in here, you should hold your fellow teachers accountable for the mistreatment of children. You can clap, it's okay. Heads need to roll. Consequences need to be put forth. We cannot accept this type of behavior from your professionals. It's ridiculous. I'm beside myself because I know that you all want to come and you want to tell us your very best, but you all have been significantly disproportionate in the way that you deal with Black children for a number of years. And I think it's time that you call in some help.
Thank you. Is there any other speakers? Welcome.
Hi. So, my name is Ebony McNeil. I'm Esion Graham's mother. He was going to Williamson Elementary School, starting first day of school, which was August the 8th, I believe, this school year. So my issue is just kind of around the whole environment of that school. I never really experienced that before, the unprofessionalism with the staff members from the first day of school, with how they greeted me, the information that they did not know about my child. Everybody was extremely unknowledgeable. That's the only way that I can say it. I can say when I was asking clarifying questions, I was getting a lot of I don't knows, and that made me extremely uncomfortable with leaving my child there. And from that day, from the 8th until September the 14th, it proved to me why I shouldn't have left my child there at that school that day, with the people who were in charge and the people who were in the classroom. Coming from being asked to leave on the first day of school, saying it was a closed campus, even though the teacher wasn't in the classroom, nobody had reviewed his IEP, no one knew anything about my child, no one knew how to take care of my child at all. My child was sent home one day completely soaked from head to toe in urine. So he was put on a school bus like that and transported to another destination completely soaked in urine. Also, my child was able to make it off of school grounds with all of the staff members around. I don't know how many staff members there are on the school grounds, but somehow he was able to make it out of a cafeteria, out of a door, out of another door, out of a gate, and onto the main street to where he could have gotten hit by a car. He could have gotten kidnapped at any point. My son is nonverbal. He doesn't know not to go with someone. So if someone was to grab him and put him in a car, it wouldn't make a difference to him. He would think he was going on a ride. You know what I mean? So that was extremely disheartening. And then leading up to the event where she struck my child, I just was able to review the reports that came to me yesterday at about 6 p.m. after I've been requesting them for about 2 weeks. I don't understand why. I think they were just written up in haste because of today was going to happen. So I can see when they were written, and I just feel extremely I'm extremely overwhelmed and disappointed with everything that's happened in this school district. I just moved to Rancho Cordova a couple years ago, so I never had to experience anything like this. And the blockage that I've gotten when I've asked questions about what happened, what's gonna happen, why wasn't I notified for 3 days? Why didn't the aide feel comfortable to tell somebody that day? Why was my son allowed to be back in that classroom with this woman that assaulted him? I'm not understanding those things. Again, like I said, my son is nonverbal, so he's not able to tell me I'm scared of this woman. You know what I mean? He's not able to tell me I don't want to get on the school bus. I can look at my son and he's just looking back at me with open eyes, and I don't know what that means. You know what I mean?
If you could wrap up or summarize.
Mr. President, if I can, I would like to hear you continue your story.
That's why I'm like, is there a time
if it
limit?
appease the board, if we can at least give her
that's what that was?
two more minutes.
All right.
By board consensus, that would be my request.
All right.
Okay.
Is there a motion to grant an extra 2 minutes?
I move.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Superintendent?
Mr.
Okay,
Mellon?
so okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Mr. Mellitor?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So to wrap it up, I'm requesting, of course, as she stated, I'm not sure if you stated that, I'm sorry, the immediate termination of Ms. McGiffin from her position. Again, a thorough investigation into all of the allegations made against her, and to make sure this isn't the only one. From the report that I received, it states that she was being extremely aggressive and with my child, and I'm sure other parents have came to me as well. So I'm sure this isn't her first incident that's happened. I would like to know if she had the proper credentials to run the classroom, because it did not seem that she did. She obviously didn't have the experience, and a whole bunch of support members were in the classroom to assist her. So was she even qualified to be the head teacher of that special education classroom? Also, increased transparency and accountability from instances that happen like this. I was notified 3 days later, but none of the other parents in the classroom were notified of that. They didn't know that their child witnessed an assault. They didn't know that their children was still in a classroom with the teacher that was doing that to students. Wouldn't any one of you like to know if that happened to your child, or your child was in a classroom that witnessed that and someone was still caring for them? You know what I mean? So all of those type of things are the things that we would like to be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there's no more public comment, actually, I'll turn it back over to the superintendent for some closing remarks.
Okay.
Someone did? Oh, all right, we got one more online. Catherine, welcome.
Hi there. I'm sorry, I am deplaning right now. Ebony and her son are family of mine, and I just want to echo her concerns and my disgust with the lack of accountability that the administration demonstrated with not reporting, not opening a CFS case, not informing the parent. There needs to be immediate action on this because it is beyond appalling.
Thank you. Superintendent?
Yes, just before we wrap up our public comments, I'd made a couple comments, Ms. McNeil, before public comments began, and I just want you to know that, first of all, we appreciate you coming tonight and your advocacy for Ision and your son, and we have a common goal that we want to see him be successful in a safe environment that you're comfortable in as well. As you know, we've briefly talked about, there's an active investigation going on. It does take time to complete, but we are committed as our district administrative team to stay in contact with you through this process, and we'll continue to dialogue with you too through Ision's current placement and beyond. So thank you for coming and sharing tonight.
All right. That moves us to, actually, I apologize. I jumped ahead in the agenda, didn't I? Reports of district organizations. We'll start with Student Advisory Board.
Hello, everybody. Yesterday was our second official SAB meeting at the CLC, which is the fourth. Like kind of an overview, we created our subcommittees, which kind of delve deeper into topics. We have a group of students specializing in certain aspects of day-to-day school life. We created 5 subcommittees. Our first one being the events committee, the second one being student resource committee, the third one being student health committee, the fourth being school culture committee, and the fifth being campus wellbeing committee. Each of these deal with different aspects of school life, and we will be working more closely with them in future meetings, hopefully creating projects and positive impacts on the district that haven't been done before. We have appointed 2 student representatives to the Budget Advisory Committee who will attend the meetings and help us accurately deliver the student point of view to the committee. And I just want to give a quick thanks to Dr. Jackson, Ms. Holton, and Ms. Ambrosini for making the meeting possible. And a thank you to Ms. Wessinger and Ms. Neal for their presentation on compassionate systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the California School Employees Association. Welcome.
Not much to report tonight. We look forward to negotiations on the contract October 25th, assuming we're sunshining tonight. And then we look forward to a successful professional development day on the Monday this coming week for certificated and classified. Thank you. Nothing else to report this time.
Thank you. Next, we have the Folsom Cordova Education Association. Welcome.
That was kind of nice, thanks. Jeanette Sansenbach for FCEA. Good evening, families, board members, staff, and those who are on Zoom, and a special shout out to the Sea of Red, our teachers. So speaking of red, Shakespeare once wrote in his play Venus and Adonis, "Let red mourn that have yet to be token, wreck to the seamen, tempest to the fields, sorrow to the shepherds, woe unto the birds, gust and foul, flows to the herdmen and to the herds." Now I can add, beware board and district. Red can be synonymous with danger, a warning, a storm is brewing, the troops are on alert. Today the Sea of Red stands before you as a symbol of unity. Unity of thoughts and actions. Our teachers are here tonight or listening from their devices because we want respect, and that respect can be shown in many ways. Collaboration of common planning time, not to be micromanaged or told what they are doing, and when it was supposed to be a consensus of site teachers and administrators. Being heard when they feel their safety is in jeopardy, and not being told, well, it's your word against theirs, or it'll be okay. Lastly, compensation. These past few weeks, I have had the pleasure of visiting a few campuses and have been amazed by all the work being done by our students and with the guidance of our teachers. These teachers have put their soul into their practice and at times opened their personal wallets to have the tools they need to do the work they are so passionate about. They do this not to be martyrs or to be reimbursed, but because that is what a teacher does. We stay late to tutor our students. We work weekends to write those letters of recommendations. We give up our lunches and preps because our students need a safe place. We have drawers full of supplies, snacks, clothing, and whatnot. We gave up our summers to plan for this school year. The list is endless as the Red Sea. As I was told recently, Jeanette, you stay in your bubble of hope. And it wasn't a compliment. It was a tease from my executive officer. We were discussing my thoughts that next Wednesday at our bargaining meeting when we present our counteroffer, and then the district presents their new proposal that the issue could be ended. It ends with both sides feeling respected and coming together to do right by our teachers. That is my bubble of hope. I know that you have heard in the past few meetings to sharpen your pencils, and both sides have. We will see if it is sharp enough. Lastly, the storm of red has arrived. Hopefully it's just a warning and calmer waters are ahead.
Thank you. Next, we have the Folsom Cordova Leadership Association. Welcome.
Good evening, Dr. Kaligian, Mr. Reed, members of the board, and distinguished audience. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce you to a couple of our individuals who are going to be giving a presentation on optimizing our systems and optimizing our systems and for innovation. This is D.T. Martin and David Stone, who will be presenting in regards to what our security system and our innovation with cybersecurity is looking like and the upgrades that we made in recent months. DT, you're up first.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. All right, here we go. We're talking about the Raptor system. Our Raptor system is a visitor and volunteer management system that we're currently using, start this school year at each of our school sites. What this does is it actually gives us information on who's on our campuses, throughout the day. It's a way for parents and visitors, contractors to check in to the campus after they come in, get their badges by checking in at the office. Again, we know who's on campus. It's preloaded with a lot of volunteer information, so those that volunteer on our campus will also have the opportunity to come on campus each day. Their information is already loaded into the system, and then from there, they're allowed to go and, achieve their, go into their classrooms where they're assigned, volunteer. Then when they get ready to leave, it also is a process of checking out. The thing about the Raptor system is, again, it's a check-in system. There's 3 ways that people can activate the system: is scan their ID card. There are those that some may not have an ID card or carry an ID card. They can enter the information manually. And actually a third way that if they have been there before, then they can do what's called the QuickTime returning visitors. So they can just kind of go in and it pulls up their information on that site and they can get their badges and print it out and they attach it to their persons and go. The system also gives us a report, different reports that we may want to use. And some of these reports may be just, who's on campus, what campuses folks have been on, how many volunteers we may have on the campus at one time, how many visitors we have on the campus at one time. And all this is geared toward, security. It gives us the total hours per visitor, so we'll know how much time visitors have spent on campus. and what organizations are on campus, including contractors as well. The Raptor system is also tied to a offender alert. It researches the Megan's directory, the Megan's Law directory, so that if we have someone on our campus or wants to enter our campus who is prohibited, then it notifies the staff and the administration on that campus, as well as about 4 or 5 others off the campus, that this person is attempting to enter our campus. So we can actually contact law enforcement. Sometimes the system looks at aliases, and sometimes there are names that match that may not be the person. So it gives us a chance to actually go out and investigate and talk to that person and make sure that this is not the person that listed on the Megan's list, so that they don't come on our campus. There are custom alerts that each campus can also create. So if there's something else, not just necessarily surrounding something that's maybe illegal, but maybe some cautionaries that we may have to be aware of, then it also can let the office staff know right away when the person checks in. Some frequent asked questions, does the application change? Does the volunteer application change with Raptor? Well, Raptor will not apply to online. Will now apply to online. So basically what happens is everyone enters all the information online. It's not loaded and available to the actual volunteer until it's been cleared by the district office, here, and they go through their fingerprinting and their DOJ checks, and then they're activated into the Raptor system. Can a offender use an alias? Of course, but it also checks for aliases, for sex offenders. CPS workers, parole officers, SROs, all those, yes, they do sign into our Raptor system as well, coming onto the campus. It gives us an idea, again, who's on campus at what specific times. Any questions I can answer anyone may have regarding the system?
One question.
Yes.
You mentioned, I think it was back on slide 7, the report. I know we often have folks from Intel that volunteer, and we get donations from Intel for volunteer hours. Is that something that can be tracked in Raptor as well?
Yes, sir. We can actually track them by individual name, or if they sign in under, just Intel, we can track it that way as well, but we'll know exactly how many hours a visitor has come on the campus, the day, and the time they checked out, leaving the campus. So yes, we can go back and look at those hours and how much time was put in.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Stone is going to talk about the changes that we've made recently to our technology system.
Good evening, President Reed, Dr. Collegian, and board members in the audience. So ETIS is always busy. So our main focus these past 2 years have been security. I'm sure everybody's aware, they've heard of the LA incident with the ransomware. So that's something we're trying to stay away from. But before I go through my exciting slide deck, I'd just like to thank and give a big shout out to the entire district, administrators, teachers, staff, for helping ETIS implement MFA successfully. So we're sort of like the poster child for school districts around here. So people call us and ask us like, hey, how did you guys implement MFA so successful? So again, I just thank everybody for helping us. So we are probably we're like the 3rd district in this area to actually implement MFA district-wide, substitutes everybody. So just wanted to give a shout out. So some of the things we've been doing is I'm going to talk about single sign-on, SSO, email quarantine, which there's been a lot of questions about, self-service password, and organizational chart. So security, like I said, security is a big deal. So one of the things we've implemented the past, year is single sign-on. So what single sign-on does is allows our staff and users to be able to log into an application with one password. That one password passes those credentials to other applications. So some of the applications that we currently use with SSO are Talent Ed, Absent Management, Amazon for Business, Verkada, which is our security system, and there's several more. So The goal is that eventually that we'll have all our systems on our SSO. So the next step is to have PowerSchool. We'll integrate Google. So that's the plan. So with SSO comes some security concerns. So that's why we implemented multi-factor authentication. So again, when you're using SSO, that one username and password passes the credentials to all those other applications. So what we did is we wanted to make sure that we were secure, so we put MFA 2FA. All right, so anybody who logs into the application, you need a second form of identity, which is typically a phone. Most of our users use a phone. So that's why we have MFA. And if you go to any security website, the first thing they're going to ask you is, do you have MFA? To get approved for cybersecurity, the first question they ask us, do you have MFA? So we have MFA implemented. Email quarantine. So email quarantine is something new that we implemented this fall. Basically what it is, it allows staff to get notified for potential spam mail. So in the past, any spam mail basically went to the ETS department. We would get phone calls like, hey, I got this legitimate email. It could be from one of the software vendors. We would go through it. We'd have to make sure it's legitimate, and then we'd have to forward that on. Well, to optimize things and to make it easier, we're going to allow our users to go ahead and look at their own quarantine and release it. We still have some security measures for serious spam that will actually still come to ETIS, and we'll actually look at it, scan it, and if a user needs it released, we can release it. But we just thought it would just make it easier for staff to go ahead and look at their own quarantine, and if they want to release it, they can. So just another way to just optimize systems. Self-service password reset. This is another thing that we started this year where we're allowing our staff to automatically reset their passwords. So I don't, sometimes I just have a brain fart and I forget my password. So we allow users to reset their passwords. It's probably about 30% of our help desk calls are users saying that they forgot their password. So this can drastically reduce those phone calls. Mr. Clark's looking at me. Yep. So hopefully this will reduce the phone calls, and our help desk can actually work on other issues that they can solve for our users. So, and so far it's been pretty good. Some of those help desk calls have been cut down. So just another way to optimize the system and allow users to, reset their passwords. Organizational chart, district organizational chart. So this is something that we also implemented. So we hope this is going to allow a communication. This will allow people to get to the resources that they need. And the organizational chart has always been there, but it's typically a piece of paper or it's on the website that sometimes can be buried. So this is basically this is an example of an email. So this was an email that I pulled up from Mrs. Brooke Knight. And it shows you directly who Brooke reports to. It shows you the people that she reports to, and then goes up the ladder. So it goes all the way up to Dr. Kalikian. So I don't know how many times I needed to know who my payroll technician was, and I wasn't sure. This is the easy way to go find that information, and that's for every department. This also goes down to the school site, to the principal, to the APs. So the goal is maybe to get it all the way down to the school level to departments. So we just thought, and you can also get this in Teams. So that's it. Any questions?
Questions?
I have a quick question, because I wanted to, because I know that's really cool.
The organizational chart?
Yeah, but I don't see it on my phone. So is it not on access to phones?
It is. I'll show you. So if you hover over the name, and then there's the organization, and it should do a drop down for you. But I'm going to come give you a personal training right now. All right, thank you.
All right.
Just to share with you how fast these guys, I want to give kudos to ETIS and DT, but yesterday I got caught in fishing And ETIS within minutes had it resolved, shut the whole thing down, rebooted, it gave me a new password, and I was good to go. And I was like, wow, in the past, this would have shut me down for an entire day. So kudos to David and his staff, and appreciate your opportunity to give you guys some updates on what's happening.
Thank you. All right, let's see, the District English Learner Advisory Committee.
So Ms. Cabrera could not be with us this evening. She just wanted me to give you a reminder that the next DLAC meeting is October 24th. And the Parent Summit this year, the first one for this year is November 4th. So those should be populated in everyone's calendars, but she just wanted to put that reminder out.
Okay, thank you. All right, that takes us to item 10, agenda consent. We will be pulling off the consent agenda item F, which is the expulsion recommendation, so that the student board members can abstain on that one. So on the agenda consent, is there a motion to approve the consent with the exception of item F?
I'll move.
Motion by Board Member Lorette.
Second.
Second by Board Member Hui. Superintendent.
Mr. Melajor?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, and then we have item F, approve expulsion recommendation, case number 2324-1S. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
A motion by Board Member Hui, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Clark. Superintendent?
Mr. Melajor?
Abstain.
Mr. Merrill?
Abstain.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, we're up to a public hearing, so I have to gavel into that. This is a public hearing, California School Employees Association 2023-2024 Sunshine Openers for the successor agreement to the Board of Education. Superintendent.
Yes. At the last meeting, the district presented their openers to CSEA, and this evening it's CSEA's opportunity to share their articles for openers for the district tonight, and they have 9 articles under consideration.
All right. Is there any public comment on this? All right, online? All right. Any questions or comments from the board? All right. This will also be under our discussion item as well following this. So I will gavel out of the public hearing. Item 12, discussion action. Item A, accept California School Employees 2023-2024 Sunshine Openers for the successor agreement to the Board of Education. Superintendent?
Yes, this action will allow the CSEA and the district to start negotiating the 9 articles as mentioned in the public comment part.
All right. Board, any questions? Public comment? Online? All right. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Board Member Clark. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Lofthouse. Superintendent?
Mr. Melajor?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right. Item B, approve selection of firm for financial advisory services. Superintendent?
Yes, at our August 21st study session on facilities, the district or the board gave district administration direction on going forward with a request for qualifications for financial advisor firms for the district. And we've gone through that process, and Mr. Martin has a recommendation for the board tonight.
Good evening. So we're going to be doing quite a few of these RFPs in the near future from our last facility discussion. We have another facility meeting study session next week. And so we are starting to put in place our team for all things related to facilities. So this will be one of the first items that we'll be bringing forward to you. So this is for our financial advisor. This firm will be, Keygent was the selected firm, but the purpose of this group will be to help us determine financially how we will be able to finance through debt service all of our future facility needs when it goes out to bond, potentially the idea of multiple bonds, looking at assessed value within our communities, setting tax rates, helping us determine all of those pieces. Previously, we were working with the firm KNN, and so I do want to recognize both Joanna Bose and Danielle Arruda for all of their years of service and work to Folsom, Cordova. They did shepherd us through a lot of transition in Folsom, Cordova, and so we do want to thank them for their work. We are very excited, though, to bring Keegan on, and so I know we do have via Zoom two of our leads for Keegan, and that's Chris Hyatt and Tony Heisch, and so they are online if there are any specific questions to the contract. The way the contract works with Keegan will be the services that they'll be providing are all associated with going out for bond issuances, and so or other debt service issuances, and so there won't be really any charges until we actually issue debt service, unless we ask them to do activities that are outside of the scope of working on those financial components. So, and then the cost of that is actually paid from the bond proceeds or debt service proceeds. And that's normally how that process works. So if there's any questions that they can answer for you or any questions you have for us about the selection of the firm, I'd love to answer those at this time.
Questions from the board?
So let me get this right. We're not paying for this now, but if there is a bond issue, it'll be coming out of that?
Yes.
Am I getting the?
Yeah. So depending on, there's opportunities sometimes to refinance. There will be other opportunities. So really, for an example, with Measure M, we probably have 2 more issuances. They work with us to work on creating all of the documents that we put out for the process. And then what will end up happening is they will work with the underwriters, or if we're going out for a sale, they will work through that process for us to try to get us the best rates possible. But then they also, as you've seen with KNN, they'll work with us. They'll come to present to the board. They'll help us with some of our long-term and strategic planning when it comes to all of the components of facilities, specifically, obviously, the financing side of it.
Okay, so that's predicated on the bond being passed.
Bond being passed or a refinance of a debt service or any of those things, yeah.
What if it's not passed?
Then they don't have a bond issuance then, so then they wouldn't be paid. So it's part of, it is the standard structure of how we do that type of work with a financial advisor normally.
All right.
Other questions from the board? All right, we'll open up to public comment. Any public comment? Online? All right, back to the board. Yes.
What's the nature? How are they compensated?
Could you come to that?
Yeah. It just
When the
seems
bond
too
is
good to be true.
issued, how are they compensated? Is it a percentage of the bond? Is it a fixed fee? What's the nature of that? Thank you.
Yeah, we discourage direct questions to staff, but I'll ask the question. How about the answer to that question?
Yeah, so it is a fixed fee. It's a issuance fee and a contract for this service. And they actually, just so you know, Keegan was rated one of the highest on that component because of the cost. Per issuance, it's $40,000. If we're doing multiple issuances at the same time, which we often try to do, it's capped at $65,000.
And I think I saw in one of the documents that they worked with over 500 school districts. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay. So obviously a great depth of experience in this area.
We're very excited to have Chris and Tony on the team, yes.
And how many responses to the RFP did you get?
We had 5 and we interviewed 3.
Okay. All right. I think I already asked. Anybody online? Yeah. All right. So back to the board. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Board Member Lorette. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Board Member Hui. Superintendent.
Mr. Melajor?
Aye.
Mr. Merrill?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
No.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Larrett?
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse?
Aye.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you.
All right. Next item, approve selection of firm for election consultant services. Superintendent.
Yes, also from our August 21st facilities study session that we had, board gave staff direction to go forward with potential bond. So we have gone out for requests for qualifications for an election consultant, and I'll ask Mr. Martin to share our recommendation.
Yes, thank you. So this is number 2 of many to come, and this is for a bond consulting or election consulting services. We interviewed 2 candidates from 3 applications, and we are recommending Lou Edwards Group to be the consultant for the district. The purpose of this would be to help us prepare with the board the planning for going out for a November 2024 election for SFID 4. And so this cost would be a cost to the district up until the point that the election cycle, the board took formal action to put the bond on the ballot. At that point, we would no longer be able to have bond campaign services through the district. At that point, it would be a part of the process of the bond committee. And so then they would potentially, if they would want to continue, they would work with Lou Edwards Group to go forward with the bond campaign through the election cycle. So the cost that you see on here for their service, which is $6,500 a month for the campaign, and then also they have cost associated with polling. That is a not to exceed number for the polling because the board will have to give us direction on the polling level of detail that we're wanting to do. We are recommending, though, that we poll because we are pretty early in the process, but we're trying to understand where our community is. We're recommending polling the entire district with some focus polling on SFID 4 and 5, which would be the Rancho Cordova and Folsom communities, since those are the areas that we'll be looking at going out bonds in 2024 and potentially 2026. And then what we would do is a follow-up poll if we think that the community or the market or something has changed since the last time we polled, and we want to get a more detailed information from our community prior to going forward with putting the bond on the ballot. And so this will be part of that process. But at this point, it's critical for us to have the entire team on board so that we start that process. And we are planning to have a kickoff meeting next week with our legal counsel, our financial, or our fiscal legal counsel that we use, David Kasnoka, along with the Lou Edwards Group and Keygent, so that we can all sit down together and work on planning out structure. That meeting's after our meeting on the 9th, so we're hoping to get some more direction from the board on some of those pieces, and then that way we can hit the ground running.
All right. Questions from the board?
So, Sean, this is something that the district will be paying for up front, right?
This is a monthly cost, and then when we do the survey, there will be a cost associated with each survey.
Okay. And I assume, and I think I read that it's coming out of the general fund?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's required to be.
It is, okay. And then that's the only pot it could come out of, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, when you say campaign, we're obviously polling the community. Are we doing anything else? Are we going out saying what a wonderful bond this is going to be and everything is all good?
You know what? I'm going to have Catherine speak to that. Catherine, okay. I believe she's on Zoom there. Catherine, would you mind unmuting?
Yes, and I have 3 colleagues in the waiting room, Dr. Richard Bernard, Adam Sonnenschein, and Rhonda Amori. If someone could admit them, that would be great. Good evening, board members. My name is Catherine Liu, and I'm the president and co-founder of the Lou Edwards Group. Really happy to be here. So, as your bond counsel has undoubtedly mentioned, and as the assistant superintendent has mentioned, our role is to gather and provide information to the board through the first step of gathering qualitative and quantitative research on voter perspectives within your district in a district-wide and tailorized way, designed to micro-focus where needed on some of the SFID. As such, we will utilize the polling to determine what voters are willing to pay for, what projects are of interest and are priorities to them. And should the board, in its wise judgment, choose to continue to look at November 2024 as an opportunity for an SFID election, we would then engage in a process to interact with and build on that initial community input, to get more input from stakeholders and voters, and then to reassess viability prior to the board's action to place a bond on the measure, a bond on the ballot.
Okay, my question would be, how do you get the input from the community members? Is it email, mail? Are you going out, let's say, door to door? I mean, how does that work?
It is a multidisciplinary process, and with that, I would like to introduce Dr. Richard Bernard, who is a partner in FM3 Research. They are in Team Lou Edwards, actually administering the polling work to be done.
I'll try that again. Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to speak to the board. We are proposing to conduct a dual mode survey, which means a portion of the respondents will be randomly selected to conduct the survey online, and a portion will be randomly selected to conduct the survey on telephone. In this day and age, a disproportionate number of individuals who respond on the phone will be doing so on cell phones. We will contact folks by email invitation, by texting, and by telephone calls.
I might just mention for the board's edification that this will not be a self-selected sample. We will be drawing a sample of likely November 2024 voters.
Okay.
So I have a quick question regarding that in terms of surveys. While half of our district is in an area where there's many renters, and so the population of the homeowners may not necessarily be living in the district, but those effects will affect those families living within the district. So how do you ensure that both parties are able to answer and kind of follow up on that? Because if you look up homeowners and make phone calls or send an email, that might not be the people who these financial ramifications are going to affect.
Sure. We'll be contacting a random sample from your registered voters who have a history and are likely to vote in the November 2024 election, or they've recently registered to vote. Whether you're a homeowner or a renter, if you're registered to vote, we will have access to the information, and we will randomly select the sample from that.
All right. Other questions?
Yeah, Board President. Mr. Martin, just wanted to clarify with the payment of this, and we said it would be coming out of the general fund. On the description, it says up to $71,500 out of the general fund up till the end of August, followed by, and it says private donations garnered by the committee.
Correct.
And then it's not to exceed $139,000 from the general fund. Is that 139 then would be the 71,500 plus the donations that come in?
No. So that's for a different component. So for the Lou Edwards group, their service, we're looking at the 71,500 number.
No more than that would come out of
general fund for that portion. But for the survey, and that's a not to exceed on the survey because it depends on the scope of the survey that the board wants to ultimately approve, that we go forward with. It could be as much as $139,000 as well. So that's on top of the 71. Those are two different costs.
Okay. So
Surveys are very expensive. That's part of the process. But when you have to realize that we're potentially asking our community for $140 million or more. Right. So that's the cost associated with, because one of the biggest pieces that we want to get is what language would they support, what projects, those types of things, but then also what tax rate. And so we don't want to go out to the community blind and just ask for a certain dollar amount. So the surveys are very important for those key pieces as well.
Yeah. that makes sense if I got it right. So it would be the 71,500 out of the general fund and potentially the 139,000
Out of the
general
general
fund.
right.
Two separate
Yep,
line items.
that's
Okay,
correct.
Thank you.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Mr. Martin, have we done any sort of just survey from us yet out to our public?
We don't really have I mean, we could try something of that nature when it comes to our parents. We normally will do some kind of communication on that, but we're wanting to survey all of the voters. So normally on that scope, and you normally would have a pollster or somebody do that on the behalf of the district, yes.
Ms. Liu, I had a quick question. I see here that you have a 95% success record, which is beyond impressive. I'm just kind of curious, the 5% where you experienced a failure on the bond, is there any type of conditions that those where the voters voted it down? Was there a downturn in the economy? Is there anything like red flags that afterwards you recognize was the predominant reason for the voters turning those down?
That's an excellent question, and I will answer it thus. I would say that many of my districts are startled when I provide this answer. I actually counsel our clients and say that there is something that's worse than reason, and that is being surprised. So the way we structure our services and our assessment, in no small part, is designed to ensure that our districts and other public entity clients are in fact not surprised. Nevertheless, some of our districts and clients are located in very, very tough locales, very fiscally prudent environments. And so there are some instances where those districts and entities have said, there is no choice, even though you might have advised us not to proceed, but to proceed. And I would say half of that time, we can claw our way to an enactment, and the other half, the results come in as we expect.
Okay.
I should also mention, because a lot of our districts are wondering, well, is this a good time to even think about this? What about voters' concerns about cost of living or economic conditions? Will we have a recession by then? In fact, the Lou Edwards Group track record has been strongest in what I would call crisis years. We had one of our strongest years during the Great Recession. We led K-14 districts to the ballot right after the tragic events of 9/11. For those of you who remember the global Enron collapse, there was a ripple effect in the global economy over that collapse. We had a very strong year that year. Also in the COVID year, we did have 69 wins out of 71 or 72 taken to the ballot. Our largest fund that year was 900 million. So it really depends on the unique circumstances of the district, and what really impressed us, all of us, when we did our due diligence on the district was it appears that you've been largely successful by presenting a well-formed vision to your electorate. And from what we can see, you've been very responsible with your bond spending. And so those are two great foundations to build on right there.
So a downturn potentially in the economy isn't necessarily predictive that a bond measure would fail then?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I would say that I know that there's no surprise in this room. The feisty nature of your district and the fact that you are a district that is a dual identity district. And your stakeholders and residents have strong opinions. I can say this with authority as our organization has led successful measures on behalf of the Park and Recreation District as well as the city of Rancho Cordova. And so it has been our observation in those instances that you do have a careful, fiscally responsible voter. So I would say being able to make the best case to to your constituents on the needs and not to overreach, simply to ask for what you need will be the single most important factor. And finally, in today's 24/7 environment, being proactive with communications. So we really see the 2023, the fall baseline survey as being the first step in a continuum of engagement and communications with your communities over the coming 9, 10, 11 months. And we're very excited to do so.
Okay. Sean, at the last meeting where we discussed this, it was mentioned that there are two different types of bonds. The one that most districts opt for, the
Prop
ones.
39, yeah.
Prop 39, but there was also a Prop
46.
46. Would this consultant be advising us on whether to try for a Prop 39 or potentially?
Keegan and yes, Lou Edwards Group would both be working with us to determine that. We would try to look and see the support level. The Prop 46 obviously has a higher threshold of two-thirds
right.
versus 55%. You don't have the limitation on the $60 per 100,000, but you also can't use those funds for the purposes of furniture and technology. So there's pros and cons to each, but that would be part of the conversation we'd be having is the design of the structure. Big piece of that is going to be what's the scope of the work that we're wanting to try to do, right, with the bonds. Okay. And that's why we talked about potentially maybe doing multiple bonds at the same time. And we're going to talk more about that on Monday as well, and how you can structure those in a couple different ways. And we won't have a solution at that meeting, but we're just providing that to you to understand. So what you need to understand is what we want to do, what is your why as a board when it comes to the bonds for Rancho Cordova and how we want to tailor that. So, okay. And I'm prepping you guys for Monday for all of that.
All right. Ms. Liu, have you ever worked on a Prop 46 bond?
We have done a number of two-thirds requirement bonds and parcel taxes. Yes.
Okay. All right. If there's not any more questions. All right. Take it out for public comment. Is there any public comment?
So I'm going to piggyback on Mrs. Lofthouse's comment regarding voting or trying to do some surveys within our district ourselves. And I don't know whether these are questions that the board wants to go into or they want to go ahead and dive into. My question, though, is how many of our parents are actual registered voters, are eligible to vote, and to make sure that we're getting not only just registered voters, because we do have a lot of migrants, people within our Rancho Cordova side, as well as Folsom, but more so in Rancho Cordova, and whether we are taking in consideration their fiscal lifestyle. So just a couple of things to go ahead and consider when we're doing surveys, if just the registered voters are being asked those questions. Thank you.
Assistant Superintendent, might I comment?
Would you like a comment?
Yes.
Sure.
May I comment?
Sure. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I know that we're meeting for the first time. First of all, we're very excited about this opportunity to partner with the district. And one of the things that our team feels very strongly about is to embrace stakeholder viewpoints as well as voter viewpoints. We believe strongly in being very inclusive in getting the feedback. And that's why we've designed a menu of public opinion research that includes both quantitative research, which is a traditional polling instrument, and qualitative research, which is focus groups. In addition, following the completion of the study, we will be assisting the district's team in developing engagement tools that are inclusive and culturally competent so that teachers, educational staff, parents, guardians, families can fully participate and provide input in a manner that is user-friendly for them. So we look forward to rolling up our sleeves and engaging with district staff on all of those approaches. Finally, I would like to say that one of the first things that we counsel our districts to do is to do an assessment of the number of parents who are registered to vote. We find that doing so is very helpful as voter participation drives are considered legally permissible activities that district can engage in. So we're really looking forward to those types of collaborations and activities as well.
And just one piece, I think Catherine spoke to it, but I wanted to make sure you guys were aware that Lou Edwards actually worked with the city of Rancho Cordova to pass one of their measures, and also with the Parks District within Rancho Cordova. So they're very familiar with the community of Rancho Cordova. So,
Thank you.
Could I ask, sorry, could I just ask one more question? Is making a decision on this time sensitive?
Yes.
Okay, well, I understand that there's an election coming up. That's neither here nor there. But I also think that it's almost a little bit putting the horse before the cart in a way. Because I think that there are things that our district could be doing right now. While I know that there's certain parameters of what we can and cannot do. But I'm worried that we're going to be paying $6,500 for them to tell us something that we know that we need to do in the next few months. And as we all know, money is not readily available. And so if that amount is the same come 3 months from now, and we've done kind of our homework on our end first, before we bring in a consulting firm to make sure that we are moving in the right direction, makes more sense to me, but maybe I have that timeline off.
Well, I think one of the things I would share is because we are coming up to the March election cycle, surveying and polling is going to become very busy during that cycle. And so we wanted to get in front of that to start the process now. Also, I will be honest, the complexity of this district and what we're trying to do within SFID 4 requires us to put more manpower in it, maybe than if I was in Pollock Pines and I was passing an $8 million bond, right? We're potentially looking at a scenario that we may want to come forward with 2 bonds or multiple systems of funding mechanisms to try to get all of the activities that we want done in Rancho Cordova, based off the conversations of some of the out-of-box thinking and some of those pieces. And so to do that, I will be honest, it is something that will require more than staff time is capable of doing. And so, I think if we are going to go to our community and ask for $140 million or $300 million or whatever we are going to ask, I do agree $200,000 is not a cheap amount of money, but relative to the amount that we're trying to do and what we're trying to do for the community, it's an investment that is necessary. The last thing I would want to do is hold up on 200 or half of it, say even $30,000, $40,000, and not pass the bond, and then we don't move forward, right? Because I will be honest, I've passed a bond and I've failed on a bond, and I do not want to ever fail again. And so I do know that the steps necessary are expensive, but they're also required when we're talking about reaching out to 40,000 people, right, in a community and asking them to support something that's going to tax them for the next 30 plus years. And so that would be kind of my thought process on that. None of these decisions are something we take lightly at all, because I totally agree the cost is an impact to the general fund. But I think the ultimate savings that will be generated to the general fund in updated HVAC systems, more efficient things, better systems for the students, all of those pieces will outweigh that cost that we have to invest right now.
Okay, let's wrap up public comment. Is there any public comment online? All right, so back to the board. Any final comments before I see if there's a motion? All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Board Member Lorette. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Board Member Hui. Superintendent?
Mr. Melajor,
No.
Mr. Merrill,
No.
Mr. Clark.
If I may comment, I'm a little hesitant because I hear a word investment, and there's quite a few things that we need to be investing in this community, in this district. But I understand the necessity of a facility and what we need in those areas 4 and 5. My first thought was to say no, only because the communication aspect of it, email, text doesn't work for me. I haven't heard anything about in-person meetings. I mean, because if it was going to affect me and I wasn't quite sure about the information I was getting, I don't want to correspond with anybody via text or email. Hell, I want to see them face to face and, get some honest answers. So I'm kind of conflicted in making my decision, but I'm going to go ahead and say yes, because I understand the needs of that area or areas. But yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and say aye.
Mr. Hui,
Aye.
Ms. Larrett,
Aye.
Ms. Lofthouse,
No.
Mr. Reed.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, that takes us to item 13, discussion. When item A is the 20-day attendance challenge. Superintendent?
Yes, as we've been hearing with our district priorities and our focus on students, one of those first priorities is getting our students to school on a regular basis. And the 20-day attendance challenge is one of our strategies to kick off the year, which we did from day 1, August day, through September 5th. And we have some data that Mr. Meyer is going to share with the board this evening, some of our bright spots and glows and some of our challenges and next steps for our next 20-day challenge. Welcome, Mr. Meyer.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we've talked a little bit about attendance is really built on habits. Improving or unfortunately when attendance goes the other way, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, but we're always looking for new ways for early interventions and to get more family engagement and to work with all interested parties. While attendance goal is 95% for all Title I schools, 97% for non-Title I schools, and 96% overall. It's kind of misleading when we actually have a goal because the work never ends. We always are adapting. We always have new challenges. I mean, shoot, we've all went through COVID. We saw the work's constant, but really the idea behind the 20-day challenge, we've all heard of First 5, is to get that early intervention, to create systems that are in place, to work with all the interested parties, and started out with making it impossible for a child to stay home without the school doing a live phone call to find out why that child's staying home. Having a productive conversation, a restorative conversation on what we can do to support to get that child to school. Now, it has morphed, it's grown, which is a good thing. We do, you might notice, have 2 different dates. We have the attendance challenge at the beginning of the year, and we also have one in January, because we really do look at those as 2 different start times. And so do our students, and so do I as a dad. I mean, after winter break, come back, it's like a whole new year in some regards. So this year, we were fortunate enough, we had $10,000 in attendance incentives that we added. Every one of our schools, every one of them created a really detailed to their school incentive plan. So we're not just throwing out things at recess. It's truly an incentive. The other piece We've added funding for additional hours during these times. A lot of our classified employees who have been just rock stars during this process might be working 4, 6, 7 hours, might want an additional hour. They know the students, so we've been working with them. And I think another piece that I really want to highlight is when working with those staff and our staff that work with kids all the time, we're really working on how to have a productive conversation. The worst thing we can do is call home and say, why wasn't Johnny there? He's sick. Okay, thanks. Don't send him in if he has a runny nose tomorrow. But find out if he's sick. Let them know that we have a nurse. Let them know, that we do care and that we have work if he wants to do work, if he's able. But also triaging if it's a transportation issue, a mental health issue, anxiety issue, those things. So those trainings have been really successful. Attendance can be really overwhelming. I'm going to be honest with the board. And I think part of it is because we can do everything right and not get the result we want. And that's frustrating. That's frustrating for our teachers. That's frustrating for our front office, for our administrators. But when you break it down into the three groups, our students, staff, and families, it does seem more attainable. One of the common things that we want to do is continue to educate. And I'm not just talking students and families. I think our own staff, someone would be surprised to know that attendance by 8th grade is the #1 indicator for graduating high school. A lot of our own staff do not know that. So we need to continue educating that, kindergarten through 3rd grade are the most detrimental to a child's education when you pull them out those days. A lot of our staff probably don't know that. But working with staff, we want to provide those consistent trainings. We really need to break down these barriers. I think one of the things that I've really respected with Dr. Collegian is she's brought in to really tear down those silos, and we were doing a lot of progress and COVID hit. We took a step back, but we're back in full gear, I think. Right, Sarah? We're there. We're getting there. But so I am excited to start working with, because this is everyone's issue, as we've talked about before. This is a special ed issue. This is definitely a fiscal services issue. It's an equity issue. It's a C&I issue, and the list goes on and on. So we're really trying to work. If the student's homeless, then we want to provide those supports. If the student's struggling academically, we want to provide those supports. If the student's special ed has an IEP, we want to work. We can walk and chew gum and do all those things, right? The students, focusing where the data is showing us, I'll show some data shortly. Really, our freshmen might not be a total surprise that is really our struggle, but TK and Kinder is extremely important because those are our foundational years. And foundational years are everything. I mean, our high school teachers out there, they should be hoping that our TK and K goes up because it's going to affect them. The other is working with families. Really, like I mentioned earlier, restorative, supportive. We've really upped our home visits, and I got to give it to our sites, not just our administrators, but other staff. It's been really cool how many sites are actually doing home visits and those live phone calls. We also had a common back to school night message that we're all committed to, which was really cool. So let's talk a little data. We're sharing data at every one of our district-wide meetings that we're in. So cabinet's an example. We're looking at this consistently. We're also providing this to schools. And if you look at this compares 22-23 with 23-24. One of the sharpest growth you can see is our PK and TK. And that is important. And we're really working closely. And I know the staff is really trying to think outside the box to see how we can improve. Because if you look at 22-23, that should be alarming. The positive here is every one of our grade levels, every one of our grade levels went up, and 24 out of our 34 school sites went up. But it's also worth mentioning that means 10 of them did not. But we have this data, we need to keep looking at it. This is a small sample size too. I want to be aware of that. This is literally the first 20 days. So I do want to give a shout out to a couple people, or a couple groups, I should say. Our community schools, they've hit the ground running. Kate Hazarian and her team have just been great working with the whole child. I also want to give a shout out to a group that often does not get enough credit, and those are our clerks and our front office. They deal with a lot, and day in, day out. And I think you all can see that, whether it's as a parent or as a board member. But a lot of them have stepped up so much when it comes to reaching out to families and being intentional. So I just really wanted to give them a shout out. Also, let's go over data, because that's why we're here. Attendance is up 0.71 compared to last year's 20-day challenge. I know that's like 0.71. That's a lot of students. That's a lot of names. We have had almost 5,000 personal calls went out to families. That's a lot of personal phone calls. We're proud of that work. We should be proud of that work. Our biggest increase, I mentioned preschool, TK, and kindergarten. Special education is up by 0.5. We're super excited about that because that was one of our student groups that went down last year. Our EL, 1.3, and our foster youth, 2.55. Dr. Pease, I know, is working real closely with foster. Our Black students up 0.84, and our Hispanics 1.14. So I love seeing the student groups. You've heard me up here before. We can't just look at overall attendance or data for anything, right? We can't look at overall data. We have to look at these LCAP and our student groups. Shout out to Williamson. They did have the 3.1% increase. And our attendance rate for male and female students increased. Our male students having an attendance of 96.2 and our female 96.1. So it's interesting, last year and this year, they're almost identical with our male and females. Now moving forward, we often talk about, is this a student problem we're having or is it a systems problem? I think we can have both. I think we have student challenges, but we also have to look in the mirror. I mentioned it can be a little overwhelming. We know that from that first time that student is truant, all the way to possibility of truancy court, there are so many interventions in between. But we're really focusing on having that systems approach and making sure we're not, as some of my colleagues say, playing whack-a-mole, where this student, what are we gonna do? But having more of a structure, because whack-a-mole will burn our staff out. So regular home visits I mentioned, having teams that are consistently looking over this data. Our SARB and truancy court, we've been super successful with both of these when we look at the data for the pre and post attendance. And then our collaboration with our community schools teams with meaningful resource. Just a couple more things moving forward. We are really excited because we are having another 20-day challenge coming up. We realize early intervention is everything. It's everything for academics, for behavior, and attendance is no exception. I know our theme this year is stay curious rather than certain. A couple things that I'm super excited. We have sandwich boards that are coming in that we're gonna put in front of our schools and that we'll talk about their attendance and we'll update those daily. And it's just kind of get people talking. And kind of if you're, I'm in there and I'm pulling my daughter out a day early to go to a concert, maybe I'm thinking, ooh, boy, it's right there. But we need to get people talking, and it's not just the staff, it's our families, it's our students. We also have established, I'm really proud, at some of our schools, some attendance support teams where we're meeting regularly, and we're meeting with district support. And last, we're super excited for preparing for our January 20-day challenge because we want to grow this every step of the way. And I kind of a little humble brag. I know some of our surrounding districts are starting to implement very similar protocols, and we're working with them. So I think that's the ultimate compliment to the work our team's doing. Any questions?
Questions from the board?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Clark.
Thank you for that presentation. I know we're trying to promote this 20-day challenge, and I'm wondering if it would be a good idea, especially coming up with the Parent Summit in November, to really talk it up amongst those parents, to get them involved and possibly spread the word. I know Elena's not here, and we can't talk to her about it, but is that information that you can get to her to
Sure.
kind of put that in?
Yeah, Mr. Clark, any opportunity we have, we need to take advantage of it. It can't just be, back to school night slide and that's that. And we send out a blast. So yes, absolutely. That's a great idea.
Okay, and then another question would be, what can we as a board do to support the 20-day challenge?
One idea that I have next year is I'm working with elementary. This is hot off the press, by the way. We want to do it. We all are a competitive bunch, not just staff, but also our kids. So we really thought about having kindergarten through fifth grade. So all fifth grade classes have a challenge. If this is just an idea, but where they have that challenge. All fourth grade classes, and then maybe they could win a donut ice cream party. I don't know where food services is right now, but nobody's recording this, right? Okay. But that might be something you can be a great opportunity to come and maybe help serve and congratulate. I think a lot of conversations are just the word of mouth, and the fact that we're talking about this, the fact that Dr. Clegan has this as a standing item that we're focusing on. I think that is a great start. I don't want to sugarcoat it. We have a long ways to go, though.
Sure.
We're still way below what we were before. We're still extremely disproportionate with those LCAP groups. So I don't want to do a smoke and mirrors here, because we have a lot of work. So I appreciate that comment. If you let me think of it, I'll
Sure.
probably think of something driving home.
Okay.
But thank you.
All right.
Mr. President, I have
Yes,
a question.
Mr.
Thank you for
Melchior.
the presentation. Can we go back to slide 5, please? So you mentioned Black and Hispanic students. Do we have any statistics on Asian American or Native American students?
We do. And if the board would like, I can send you a very detailed report.
Yes, please.
Yes, we will do that.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
How much support do you think, would, hang on, you can go. Let me formulate my thoughts again.
All right. And other questions?
Did have a couple questions.
Yep,
If that's
Mr.
all right.
Hood. Yep.
First, thank you for the presentation, Mr. Meyer. I wanted to ask first, as a really specific example of pulling your daughter out of school a day early for a concert. That's just hypothetical, right? Just wanted to make sure.
Like going to Postal Service on Monday or something? Yeah, I got you.
Okay. This is great. I'm looking at this page 4 where it's showing every grade level across the board is up. That's a huge testament to the work that's been done. So thank you so much. You mentioned community schools a couple of times within this. We don't need to get too much into it tonight, but I'm really excited to hear what work has been going on there and the impact it's had on specifically on this. Maybe when you send the information about the rest of the percentages, it would be great to see our community schools and kind of the impact that just those specific schools have had with the attendance. And I know you said there's some additional funding for hours for phone calls home and home visits. Is that funding wrapped into the community schools grant, or is that totally
No,
separate?
I'm not sure what account that comes from, Sean. The additional funds for the additional classified hours for the first 30 or 20 days.
We're using supplemental funds for that.
It's just supplemental.
Yeah. Last thing for me is, I know you said we almost had 5,000 phone calls home those first 20 days. You don't have to give a number, but kind of a ballpark with the home visits. Do you have a sense of how often that was happening, how many home visits we did?
Oh, man. I know Mr. Douglas is there today. He says a lot. I would guess well over 100.
Yeah.
More than we did last year. Probably all of last year, close to it, and we're a quarter of the way in.
Good. Well, good job. Thanks for your work and for the presentation.
Hey, and you should be excited about the work that and getting some of the feedback about community schools, because they're crushing it. They're such a passionate team, and Kate Azarian's doing a great job working with them. I'm sure you've been out to the schools and seen them in action, but that additional support, it's amazing to see.
Thanks.
All right, I've formulated my thoughts. Do you think that students being in the know about the 20-day attendance challenge would help increase the numbers? If we promoted it on Minga or something, and if the students knew that they were contributing to a bigger thing by going to school, from at least the 20-day attendance challenge to you carry that on through the rest of the year. Do you think students having more knowledge about that would increase attendance?
Yeah, it's funny when we talked about this, we thought, why are why is a guy in a tie from the district office coming up with these incentives? We actually thought SAB would probably be the best group, and I know time is valuable, so I think it would be great if we could maybe connect and get some ideas. I'm not naive, I get it, whether you're a student or an adult, when you're part of something, you own it, and you're going to be more committed, rather than just being like, hey, do this. So if that's something we could get on, we would love to come and talk to your team.
Of course, that'd be great. Thank you.
I just had a kind of comment on that too. I know at Navigator, they did a really good job of like informing the parents about that, but also informing the kids about that. So Navigator's incentive was for the 20-day challenge, the kids got a water bottle with the Falcon on it and things like that. And then every month when they hit that attendance goal, they get a little different sticker of the Falcon in a fall scene or a winter scene or different things like that that they get to like put on their water bottle. So it just keeps encouraging the kids past that 20 days to continue on past that. So, I think the kids were really excited about it. And this year, because of the extra funding, they really upped their water bottle game. So the kids were really excited. They're like, they're medal this year. They were like so excited about it. So, appreciate the extra funding for that. But, I know that the kids were really like jazzed about getting a $3 water bottle and a decal, and so I think that those things really do make a difference. But they did a great job of communicating to the kids of why they were getting it and what the purpose of that, so that the kids kind of owned it. And, I think the parents kind of owned it because the communication went out right away to the parents of like, this is what we're doing. So I, to Mr. Merrill's point of, making sure that communication is really solid with the administration, with families and stuff like that, I think really helps with the mission. So.
I appreciate you recognizing that because they've worked really hard for their attendance charge. So
they did.
Thank you for recognizing that.
Ms. Lofthouse, do you have anything? Okay. I have to tell you, this is very impressive. And I know you and your staff and the entire staff has put a great deal of effort in this. And I think it shows. That graph there alone. But there is one thing I wanted to highlight, if I'm reading this correctly. If you could go to slide 5. So you look at the percent increase for Black students, 0.84%, and for Hispanic students, 1.14%. And you look at the attendance is up by 0.71%. That tells me that Black and Hispanic students actually are outperforming
correct
the rest of the students, which would be Caucasian and perhaps Asian. But that's significant. That's a huge success there.
Yeah. So the growth has outpaced, and we're excited. Yeah. But we still have a long ways to level up. But thank you for noticing that. We're excited too.
And I really appreciate your outside the box approach in thinking on this. This is not an easy goal, but it's one that I think you're making great strides at reaching. I really question what percent, if you were to poll students and separately poll parents and ask them, do you know how the school is funded? I would hazard a guess probably most would answer no. They're not sure how it's funded. And then ask them, do you think missing a day of school impacts how your school is funded? I'd be curious because I bet you the vast majority of folks don't realize that their attendance impacts the money that the district gets. And, I think that's all part of the education process. I think the vast majority of folks, if they realize that their attendance impacts the money that we receive, the money that we can put towards our staff, our programs, our facilities, it might resonate at least with a certain number of them.
That education piece is huge. And we do have a script that we provide, especially for folks who've never done those calls home, how to triage, because they aren't the know-all, but they should know who to triage. And one of the questions we do prepare them is, we get it, you want our money. You want, we do want to have a response to that. Yes, that's not why we're calling, but it is important because where do you think that money gets spent?
Right.
And that is how some of those additional, that does go to some of our mental health supports. That does allow us to build new facilities. And so it is a good conversation piece. And we do, that's actually one of our questions that we actually have them model and we break apart. So that's funny you mentioned that, because that is a kind of a common response too, is, and it's anger, it's not geared at us, but sometimes there's frustration, and thank you.
Okay. All right, well, this is just discussion, but I will open it to public comment if there's anybody from the public that wishes to comment. Please come up to the microphone.
Do we have a floating mic?
Welcome.
Thank you. I was just wondering which 10 schools did not improve?
I actually don't have those off the top of my head.
All right. Any comments online? All right. So I guess that will wrap up the discussion on the 20-day attendance. But, you know, I mean, I think we all agree. You guys are doing a great job. Keep it up.
And it's really the schools. I mean, I wish we could take the credit, but it's the schools that are doing the hard rolling up their sleeves. Like, but thank you.
Well, congratulations to everybody. Yeah. All right. That takes us to item 14, information. Item A, Minga applications, campus communication, engagement, and pure data, power school attendance, and tardy scan. Superintendent.
Yeah, as we continue to focus on our fourth priority of systems efficiency and communication and making sure our families and our students know what communication needs to be shared, we've looked and invested in a couple of online applications to help us with communication with our students, with our families, and also with attendance. So with that, Dr. Huber, do you want to introduce our team that's with us tonight?
Yeah, I'm just here to introduce Dr. Jackson from Cordova High School and Dr. Grooms from Vista Del Lago, who will be taking us through this presentation this evening. Ladies.
Welcome.
Hello, good evening. It's a little later than we're used to. So we're going to take you through this probably fairly quickly. Vista Del Lago actually started with the pure data system last year. The rest of the sites rolled it out this year. So we actually have some data to compare. Our students' lates were drastically reduced from this system. And what the system does is it automatically emails the parent when the student arrives. So the student arrives, they check in at one of the kiosks and scan their ID card. It prints them a receipt that tracks their number of lates. It automatically prints the consequence on there if they've reached that threshold. It emails the parent in real time telling them what time their student checked in. If there's a consequence assigned, the parent gets an email, and then it emails the teacher as well. So that way they don't disappear somewhere between that kiosk and the classroom. And it also logs it all into PowerSchool. So it's like this fast, amazing one-stop shop that's reduced our tardies drastically in the 2 years. And it lets us in the AP office triage our more critical cases and figure out what's going on with those kids and help them get whatever resources they need to get to class on time. And the other thing is Minga, which we started last year. I think Cordova and Folsom High started this year. And we've taken different approaches, I think, as sites. We're taking it bite-sized, and I think Cordova went all in. But Minga has many different facets. One of them is a location management system, so it has their digital ID cards. We've uploaded into our Minga if they have early dismissal, late arrival. We're uploading lunches so that we know if a kid should be out of class at that time. The other piece is the hall pass, which we haven't fully implemented at Vista, but we're working on a small pilot. I think Dr. Jackson's using that one a lot, but it lets you see what students are out at any given time.
Yeah, so we are using Minga more frequently for our hall passes. So it's a really good tool, not just for hall passes and for teachers to be able to monitor and kind of keep track of students being out. I mean, I think the biggest benefit is having a timestamp. So if we do want to communicate with parents, we have something to run on. It's consistent. Other teachers can see that data as well. But we also use it as a social media platform, which is really cool. And so we're able to put activities, announcements, events up. It's been really helpful for sports as well. I almost want to ask if I could approach the dais and show you what it looks like on my phone. Would I be able to do that?
Pretty fancy
Sure.
on the phone.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And it uses both the phone and the Chromebook, so they can use it either way. We're using it to track our point systems. It's this fancy social media feed like feel. Students join groups like Facebook and they only see their groups on the feed. So like our football team might have a group and their communication only shows up to the relevant parties. And then the last thing that is pretty cool about it is the communication piece. And it allows for two-way communication between teachers and students, but it's all moderated. So as an administrator, I can see even things that are deleted in that communication stream, which lets us keep our kids a little safer with that communication. And it also has PBIS, which we haven't ventured into yet because this platform does everything and we would overload our poor teachers and students if we went all in at once.
Yeah, so there are a lot of really cool features to Minga. So you're probably seeing what's kind of cool. If you scroll through, there are a lot of pictures about our students winning the attendance challenge. So I also want to just give a shout out to Scott Meyer because he's been helping our team over at Cordova with attendance. And so part of the PBIS and trying to promote, attendance and making sure that the kids are in the know is announcing names from week to week. Every Friday we do that. And that's pretty cool. And we post their picture on Minga. And we also have, I want to give a shout out to our media communications and student leader intern, Justin Kofnavec. And he's been posting a lot of really great content on there as well, just kind of being the representative for students on the application. So Minga's been pretty great.
Questions?
I had a question, and I'm actually going to direct it to the student board members, because when the late passes first started, there was concern with how long it took to get the late passes and then get to class. So I wanted to see if it's improved from what you can tell. And then a follow-up question was, are there kiosks in multiple places on the school sites? So
Yeah, the times have been reduced since the first day. It was, really long. That's why I complained about it. And then it's gone down a lot. So as the people being late to class has also gone down. So that's lowered the times. And since it was new for the teachers, the students, the administration. So it did take a lot longer the first week or so. But it's definitely gone down because of familiarity, less lates, and there's more kiosks. There's one at the counseling office too now?
Yeah.
So there's multiple sites now, but before it was just the office. So yeah, it has gone down. And I'm not sure the exact number it is, the minutes right now, but it's definitely reasonable.
Awesome. Yeah, and I can speak to that a little bit. Thank you, student board member Van, Meryl. So I just want to provide some clarification. So there are two different things we're talking about. So we have our pure data system, which is a plug-in to PowerSchool. That's what monitors all the late passes and attendance. And Minga is more of a hall pass monitor. So it's something that teachers can use. It's something that students can kind of have agency over creating their passes and getting those approved by teachers. So there are two different things. As far as pure data, I know that Van and I talked quite extensively about how to make sure that we are able to use this new system in a way that doesn't compromise instructional minutes. Because at the end of the day, the reason we're implementing it is because we value those instructional minutes. We want to support teachers. We want to make sure that teachers are able to really focus on good, strong instruction. And it's so much easier when you have students in the classroom on time, on task. And so we talked about how to get those minutes down. And so since then, we went from 2 scanners to now we have 5, and we have 1 more that we can still put up. So we have 6 in total. We also had like the old school guns that would scan, I shouldn't call them guns, the old school scanners where, they look like those old school grocery store scanners. And you click on, you click on the cards. And so we actually have front-facing scanners now. So the district had invested in those, which has also helped bring the time down. So I think that first day we did run into some hiccups. That always happens when you introduce the system for the first time. We ran out of paper. There were software issues, like everything that you could think of. But since we've been keeping track, that's one really big goal for us. So every day we're keeping track of how many minutes it takes to get the entire line down. And so right now we're between 7 and 12 minutes.
And our line clears out within 45 seconds. So, and we only have 2 scanners going, but it's, before I could even get in the door from that late bell, the line's gone.
Thanks.
Questions?
Oh, just one quick question. You said at Vista that for the hall pass, you're piloting it with a certain group?
Yeah, so I have a few teachers checking it out, trying to figure out the best practices for making it work, because there is that technical piece and we didn't want to overload our teachers. So we're looking at probably a full-scale implementation when we change turn in January. The thing I personally love about Hall Pass is I've noticed like a couple of students that are out every period. Well, that's something that maybe we need to talk to the nurse, mental health, figure out what's going on and support that kid. So for me, I like the data that it provides me on our kids, that nobody would have realized that this kid's out every period of the day, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what's been really helpful about the data is it helps us communicate with parents. And so we've been able to check in with students. We run a list every week. Then parents are contacted that weekend, letting them know, hey, there's going to be a check-in the following week. And our restorative specialist, Brian Lewis, will meet with them that following week. And so we've seen drastic changes or differences in, from week to week, students not being on that list the following week because we've made contact with parents. So we see it as a really valuable tool that way. Just to share a little bit of other data as well, just putting out a survey to teachers. About half of our teachers responded to that survey, and 90% of the teachers have said that they've seen an overall decrease in the number of lates to their classes overall. And so even if you look at that extra 10%, no one's saying that they're seeing an increase. They're just saying there's no change, but 90% is a win. So
I'd just like to make a comment on that. I know, talking to Conrad last year, the bathroom passes were like out of hand. And, I think the concern was the instructional minutes of like, if you're giving a student a bathroom pass in the first period and they're gone for 20 minutes, and then second period, same student, 20 minutes, and so those instructional minutes that are just lost, which now we can kind of track that and really look at that and say, okay, like, why are we gone for 20 minutes out of every single, 7 periods and the amount of time that we're losing in the classroom and addressing those issues, because he's like, when you have a paper pass, how are you monitoring that? How can you like collect that? You're not going to collect all the papers at the end of the day, to be able to address those issues. So it, I know when I talked to Mr. Sims, he said that he had a student who's been chronically late for the last 2 years, and that kid is busting to class to like run to get there. And it's just stopped that chronic lateness, and how much he appreciated it and how much better the student was actually performing in the class, just because he was on time and kind of present when class started. So far so good.
Well, on a fun note, I've been looking at the video footage because I was curious those first 2 weeks versus when we started implementing the system, and it's dramatic, and it's really cool to see kids hustling to class.
Yeah, they're running because mommy or daddy or parent gets an email, right? Whoever they live with is getting that email, and it sends it to all of the contact parent screens.
Yeah, Dr. Jackson, I know it's probably hard to tell because this is the first year of this system at Cordova High, and I think you just answered the question, but I just want to make sure. The old system, you can't really quantify or compare because we didn't keep statistics of that nature in last year. But you said that at least when you polled the staff, at least 90% of them thought that the students have improved their how late they, or on time, I guess is what I'm trying to say, that they're being on time, and that's an improvement, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Overwhelmingly so.
And I guess for Vista del Lago, so you launched this last year.
We did.
So, okay, there it is. All right. And
And
it's
we
showing,
did bring it into our consequence levels, just for, that's the data that we were looking at. So we have our, everybody's gonna have a day that they're late, that's reality. We don't start a consequence until the 4th late. And then anybody who's 7 or more is our chronics that we are highly addressing.
and term 1,
So that's August through December of both years comparisons.
okay. All right, so then you're comparing apples to apples then here. Okay, all right. Well, this is wonderful. No, thank you very much for the presentation. And this is just information, but we will open up for public comment if there's any public comment. Online? All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And that takes us to item B, one of our favorites, right? The 2024-2025 instructional calendar update. Superintendent.
So we're bringing you a progress report tonight. Really no action or no major discussion other than we have put out the thought exchange for calendar A and B that we daylighted at the last board meeting. Went to staff and to families, and the thought exchange closes on Monday, October 9th. We do have kind of a progress report of what the data is telling us so far, and either Mr. Ogden or Angela Griffin can share what that data is. Angela, do you want to share what the thought exchange is at this point, the responses, and where folks are leaning?
Sure.
And Janine also pulled the teachers union if you want to have her talk to.
Hi there, I apologize, I have sort of a tickle in my throat, so if I cough, I do apologize for that. So the Thought Exchange launched this week, and we sent it out community-wide, and we also, thanks to ETIS's help, were able to put it on students' Chromebooks. So when they log into Google, it pops up and it asks them to participate. So we do have some data on some of the participation right now as it stands, and as Dr. Kaligian mentioned, it does close on the 9th. So currently, 16% of the participants are employees, 62% are parent guardians, and 22% are students. And I will also just kind of draw your attention to the fact that of those participants, the majority are coming from the Folsom side, 79%. 16% from Rancho Cordova, and then there are 4% that kind of sort of identify as, serving both cities. And so in that case, it would be a staff member, most likely. We are doing an extra little push to get the word out to encourage the Rancho Cordova families to participate in the Thought Exchange. And I've had the help of Dr. Huber and his team too, to have the principals also do some direct outreach. We know that historically when we do data surveys, our participation is typically lower on the Rancho Cordova side. One of the neat features of Thought Exchange is that it'll auto-translate so that you can read it and participate, write your comments in almost any world language. It's fascinating. I think there's over 200 languages that it serves. So I'm pretty certain that any language that our families speak or our students speak, they would be able to participate in this. But overall, and just as a reminder, it's qualitative data, but the system will kind of bucket things into summaries and in themes. What we're finding is that just as of right now, it's kind of, I want to say evenly split, but for different reasons. A lot of our staff really enjoys Calendar A, and they're highlighting the fact that that break in February is something that is very appealing. A lot of our families are enjoying Calendar B, and the reasons that they're citing is that there's a longer summer, and some of the comments are really not just to the calendar, but I want more summer. I don't want to come back so soon. Can we start school a little bit later? So that's a little bit of a flavor in that. It's a little bit evenly split, but some of the groups that, if you disaggregate where that comment is coming from, it's a little bit split. So at that point, I mean, this is kind of where we're at right now. We're hoping to get some more participation over the weekend. We can remind people again to participate in the thought exchange, and it'll stay open through the end of day on Monday. But are there any questions?
Questions?
I had a question I asked earlier, but I'm just going to ask for the sake of it being asked here. I know that there was a concern that was brought up for childcare happening so quickly after Christmas break for many of our families. And I just wanted to know what the options will be at the district level for potential childcare with families that are going to need that in maybe that February break.
So we do offer ELOP at our Title I schools, and student care, we'd have to check into staffing for that, but the ELOP, we would be able to offer that.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? You know, one thing that I'll mention, and I've already asked the superintendent about this, and I admit this is probably an idea for the following calendar, not this one. But, you know, at the last board meeting, I forget who raised it, but the idea of standardizing spring break. Right now, spring break is tied to the Easter holiday, and that bounces around. It's not predictable. You know, parents don't know that automatically this week is spring break. You know, I'm wondering if, you know, going forward in the future, there might be a benefit of identifying a particular week as spring break. It could be like the last week in March, and instead of you know, having the winter break that's identified, we would just have that 1 week off in at the end of March. But everybody, parents, teachers will know, hey, if you go to FCUSD, you know the last week in March is the spring break week. You know, I'm wondering if that could potentially help in the future avoid this. I mean, every year, we go through this every single year with the calendar. You know, I mean, even if we did something like that, you know, we could still make the Friday and Monday on the opposite side of Easter as a vacation day or a holiday for those that travel for the Easter holiday. But at the very least, you know, potentially have that type of standardization. You know, it was something, again, it was raised at the last meeting. I kind of was thinking about it on the drive home after the last meeting, and because I hadn't really thought of something like that, and I think it has some merit. And, you know, it's probably too late of an idea since the union's already pulled their members and you have the thought exchange. But still, you know, I think there's some merit there that we might want to consider in maybe the year after, create some standardization so that, and we could create some formulaic approaches as well. You know, when does the school year start? You know, when does the school year end? When is the winter break start? When does the winter break end? When, you know, I already mentioned spring break. And perhaps if we could dial it in, we could avoid every single year having a prolonged conversation about what our calendar looks like. It's just an idea, but maybe I need to get on Thought Exchange.
Oh, please do. I encourage everybody here to get on Thought Exchange because, again, I think the beauty of this survey tool is in the rating system. And so we encourage people to visit often and go back and see what some of the comments are and go back and rate what people are saying. I will say that with the folks who are favoring the February week, it is the comments are quite common in that they want that sort of mid-year break, if you would, coming back from winter break, and then before the school year ends. They find that a high value in a lot of the comments. So if that helps to inform any future decision making. But I look forward to seeing the data as it expands and then sharing that out with you.
All right. Again, this is just information, but we will open it for public comment if there's any public comment. Online? All right. Tony, welcome, Tony. You have to unmute, Tony.
Yep. Hi, everybody. Tony Ruiz Vistalago. Yeah, Mr. Reed, you and I find ourselves in complete agreement. I've brought this up before. I do think that there is a lot of benefit to the district looking at the concept of removing the tie between spring break and Easter. Most colleges, I happen to have a son in college right now, and even my younger son who is done with college, their spring breaks were fixed. It was always usually the second or third week in March. And to have that be a kind of a fixed time for families to plan, especially when, if they want to go on vacation, you know, if you try to book a vacation in around Easter, the airline rates are ridiculous and astronomical. And I also would like to just point out that we do have a number of students that don't identify with Easter. I have a number of Muslim students, number of Buddhist students, and we can't necessarily tie our spring break, and shouldn't be tying our spring break, to one particular religious holiday. I think it kind of defeats a certain amount of equity for the entirety of our district. So I am very much in favor of pursuing that idea further, and yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. That was it? All right, so that finishes up the information. And I guess that takes us to the superintendent's report. Superintendent.
Okay. About a week and a half ago, Cordova High School hosted their Lancers Athletic Leadership Conference, and I thank everybody at Cordova High, administration, athletic directors, along with our Director of Athletics, Peter Maroon, and our board member support who helped this come together for our student athletes. Both male and female. And for the short time I was there, I heard kind of overview of the presentation and some of the feedback that students were asked for and their participation. And I think it's the beginning of more types of leadership opportunities for our students. And I know our athletic director from Vista Del Lago was there just observing, because they haven't scheduled theirs yet, but they plan to in the near future. So very excited for the comments that I heard from students about being able to share some things that they learned from people who have experienced things the hard way and how it sticks with you for a lifetime. So they were learning a lot of life lessons for people who had walked in those shoes, which I think made an impact on our student athletes. And then I'd like to do another shout out to our school teams, all of our staff, certificated, classified, administrative, and working alongside district staff for the attendance campaign. And it's not just for 20 days, as Mr. Meyer said, it's ongoing, it's developing habits, and continuing to communicate the importance of getting our students to school every day. And the personal outreach and contact obviously has made a positive difference. And I just want to publicly thank all those that are working on that, and our families, because we know that the challenges at home are there as well. So we appreciate everybody's partnership in that. I also want to thank our ETIS team and everything that they're doing to keep us safe on the technology front. And, you know, as soon as we close our eyes and open our eyes, there's another new security measure that we have to put in place. So I thank Mr. Stone and the team in ETIS for all that you're doing to keep us safe. And then lastly, you know, very deep sympathies and condolences to the McDonald family for their loss, for Michelle, and losing a member, not only of Folsom Cordova, but a member of the Russell Ranch family, and all those students that she's impacted over the years since, I believe, 2006, those students that are now at Folsom Middle School and Vista Del Lago. So our prayers as a district go out to the McDonald family and to our families at Russell Ranch and Folsom Middle School. Thank you.
Thank you. Board member reports. We'll start with the students. Board member Melajor.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's October, so I'd just like to recognize that it is LGBTQ History Month, as well as being Filipino American History Month, and I want to highlight the need that we need to recognize these groups, especially if we're dedicated in promoting student equity and representation across FCUSD. I'd like to also highlight some of the events that happened at yesterday's SAB meeting. We did form subcommittees, and I liked the discussion surrounding our new pilot dress code, which was very interesting. And I'd also like to keep in mind that if we really want to promote FCUSD's mission statement of providing excellence in education programs, we have to set positive examples of how this district treats our faculty and teachers, as well as how our teachers and faculty treat all students in this district. And lastly, I'd like to end with my thoughts and prayers for the McDonald family, as well as Mrs. McDonald, who was an inspiration to all students. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Merrill.
I'd like to begin by reiterating what Matthew said, and that my condolences are with the McDonald family. This year, I'm very excited to work with the Student Advisory Board. I know I've said this multiple times, but I can't contain my excitement. I really see something in every student that comes, and I'm really hopeful that we can, make a lasting positive impact on the district, just as our successors have done. And I'd like to say, I hope everyone has had a good start to our spooky season, and I can't wait to experience my favorite time of the year again, these October, November, December months. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Lofthouse.
Yeah, so I wanted to make sure that it was known that when I'm making my decisions, my concern is always for our most vulnerable students and families. And so when we're looking at the bonds in the future, and I know that those bonds will impact our students and our families greatly, I just don't want to put something in place that is going to push these families out of our community. And so for me, I think that there's a huge education piece that's missing. And I really hope that while we're not just targeting our voters, because we know that not all of our people in Rancho Cordova vote, or in Folsom for that matter. I think that the turnout in Folsom was only 40% last election. So that we are just ensuring that everybody understands what it is that they are voting for and what that personal impact is before we go a route of putting this out there, and just making sure that everybody impacted really truly knows what is happening. And also thoughts and prayers are with especially Aaron McDonald at this time. I worked with him very closely for many years at Folsom Middle School, and to know him was to love him, but also his wife. And so any student who had either one of them, they were always their favorite teacher. That never changed. I was always in competition with him, but it was well given to him. So my thoughts and prayers for the entire family and all of their kids that they had every single year, because that's who their children were. And a thank you to Backwine Bar, because I know they're supporting them tonight. And then on next Tuesday, Handles will also be having a fundraiser. So if you can find yourself a need for an ice cream, to go next Tuesday. And then lastly, just briefly, a message to Ebony. I wanted to thank her for coming tonight. I know that that was not easy for her, that she is being heard, she's being seen. And from our perspective, we're doing everything that we can at this point. So I never want a student to not feel safe at school, or a family not feeling safe sending their kids to one of our schools. So that's my utmost priority. So that's all.
Thank you. Board Member Clark.
Gene and I send our condolences to the McDonald family, and we have them in our thoughts and prayers, and we grieve with Mr. McDonald, and hopefully we'll be there on the 10th to support and see what we can do on our end. I look forward to, I've been kind of slacking on site visits, so tomorrow I'm actually going to take the day off from work and make visits to Riverview STEM, Sandra J, Gallardo, Sutter Middle, and Vista del Lago. And then I'm going to swing by Cordova, because I want to kind of play with that software and have a little fun with it. I put together a statement that I want to read regarding Ebony and her son. And I had to read over it 1,000 times, and I kind of made edits as I was reading it. But first and foremost, to Ebony, I just want to offer my sincerest apologies. I know she's not here, but especially to her son. I didn't become a trustee to hear from a parent that their child had been touched in an offensive way or mistreated in any way by anybody. You guys know that I have a special place in my heart for our SPED kids. There's nothing in the world that I wouldn't do for them. But this is a problem. This is a major problem that we have. And, for me personally, I'm not going to stop working on this problem. We're going to try to fix this until we meet the standards that put me to be a trustee and provide her son and any other child out there. I want to let them know that, they're not only those parents, students, those kids belong to those parents, but they belong to me. I consider each and every one of those kids my kids. Out of respect for my fellow trustees and for our policy of listening without responding during public comment, I've held back my thoughts and my responses. However, I want Ebony to know and every other parent to know that I hear you. I hear you loud and I hear you clear. Although I am restrained by certain laws and policies to proceed in a way that may not be as direct as you want me to be, but please do not mistake my measured approach for anything less than dedication to solving this problem. Few questions come to mind, and particularly to district staff, and I asked it in closed session, and I'm going to ask it now. Why wasn't the board informed about Ebony's son before it happened? When the incident involving her son occurred, the board was not notified, and I think, honestly, if we had been, we would have been in a position to direct the superintendent. Wherever our problems are, or maybe, this has to end here, and it has to end now. I respect our policies, our professional staff, and I trust the decisions that we make as trustees. And I watch day after day as our students and parents follow district policies and procedures, but I cannot stand and watch when and if our own professional staff disregard our own policies and procedures, or our policies and procedures are so lacking that we are not protecting our kids. Therefore, I'm respectfully requesting, with board consensus, obviously, by our next board meeting, I'm hoping that the superintendent prepare and present a report to the board in open session what constitutes, and I've heard this word a couple of times, our best practices when it comes to hiring, training, and monitoring the progress of our district employees, especially any district employee who are going to have direct access to our kids. I'm not asking you to do a lot of research. I have been assured over and over that our professional staff who are paid as professionals already know and always use best practices. So giving a presentation to the board and to the public to assure us again that these shocking allegations are not the result of our failure to know and to follow best practices. I'm not asking for details of any complaints currently filed against the district or any private information about employee or student. I'm asking for what should be public information already. And I'm asking that we are being transparent. For example, what steps does the district and site staff take beyond requiring an applicant to submit fingerprints to DOJ and FBI to make sure that we are selecting an applicant who we, as trustees and I'm emphasizing the word trust in our title, can trust to be with our kids. I appreciate that the superintendent told the press that we can do better, and that we will do better. However, that's not enough under these circumstances. Just saying that we can do better is the kind of assurance that you give when you miss a minor deadline, or maybe when you're at work working on a report, or maybe you have to pay an extra fine for being late. We're not talking about clerical error. We're talking about allegations of a physical assault by a teacher on a student. It's not enough to say, oops. This is shocking and completely unacceptable. I'm hoping with the board consensus that the superintendent can prepare and present the following reports to the board and to the public, detailing how we are going to do better. To me, that means three things: a report on what are best practices when it comes to hiring, so that our kids are safe. Included within this report shall be our policies and procedures and practices, emulating those best practices as I've been told. And I sit on a policy committee, so you know what? I will take part of that blame. I will own that, but we need to do better. A report on district policies and procedures for handling complaints of a crime or any offensive conduct alleged against a staff member, whether it involves a student or teacher or parent initiating the complaint. When there is an allegation against a staff member, what is the district's policy and procedure for handling that complaint? Is it in writing? If it is, then it will not be hard to bring it to the board by a future board meeting. If it is not, if you decide in a moment how to treat each complaint based on what it says, please be prepared to explain to the public why we do not have a written policy or procedure. Number 3, a report on communicating information both vertically and laterally within the district, with a special emphasis on information gets communicated to the board and when it should be communicated. By vertically, I mean, what is the district's policy and procedure for reporting up to the district from site, or up to the board from site or the district, for example? Bilaterally, I mean, what is the district policy and procedure for communicating between staff members in the same level and like the site level or at district level? For example, how does HR communicate to new teacher induction, supervisor, and vice versa? Again, I'm not asking for private or confidential information regarding any specific allegation. I believe everything I'm asking for is already a matter of public information. We should already have it, and we should not be hard to gather it into a report in a future board meeting. In closing, as a board, we have an obligation to our parents and members of the community who entrust us with the safety and welfare of our children to do a complete and thorough evaluation of our policies and procedures. And to me, that starts with doing a thorough review of our policies and procedures and making changes where it's necessary. And clearly, some change will be necessary. Superintendent Collegian's promised to the public that we can do better. And I will say this, as a board and as a district, we will do better. I think we can begin by having the superintendent present the policies and procedures I have outlined for us to review, so that we can proceed to make any changes, to take any action necessary for the safety and the welfare of our kids. And that I close out, sir.
Thank you. Let's see, Board Member Lurett.
Yeah, just wanted to extend our warmest condolences to the McDonald family. It's very hard when a student loses a teacher, especially one who's been as influential as she has been. Wanted to also just kind of talk a little bit about the leadership conference that they had for the Cordova High athletes. It was an awesome conference. I was able to be there in the afternoon. And kind of what was really cool about it is they had Mr. Douglas that was there that was kind of sharing his story, a familiar face. And, you know, I think that there was a lot of folks that were in the room that the kids could, you know, identify with. And I was really excited about the fact that this was just kind of step one for this leadership program and that there would be some extension and further opportunities for these kids to, you know, really rise up and to kind of be leaders in their community. So I appreciate taking that step and having that. I also did want to give a shout out to our clerks. My son actually happens to be a TA in the office, and one of his clerks even offered to come to one of his football games. And so just, you know, really wanted to talk about how awesome it is when our staff really like make the extra effort to connect with our students, and really like how excited he was for that small gesture of kindness to even offer to come to a football game. Really how much that is really just endears these students to these staff members, whether that's a teacher or, you know, someone who's in the lunchroom, or, you know, just those different connections that they're making, and really what a positive influence that they are. And just wanted to, you know, really highlight them, because I know that during our attendance challenge, they were doing a lot of work, and wanted to, you know, give them the props for that. So also wanted to say that I'm looking forward to going and seeing Clue at Cordova High. So I'm excited. We have a new drama teacher there, so I'm looking forward to seeing that production. And then also did want to just remind families that Christmas in Cordova applications are starting to open up. So the applications can be found on the Rancho Cordova PALS website as we get into the holiday season. And there is also Pioneer Days up at Coloma that will be on the 4th. So there will be biscuit making on a stick and brick making and a candy cannon and candle making. And so particularly for our students who are studying California history, it would be a great family activity to be able to head up to Coloma. The hours are from 10 to 4. So hope that we could get some families out there that can make that. So, and other than that, that's it for me.
Thank you. Board Member Hui?
Thank you. It's just a couple quick things. One is, just want to wish the best of luck to our high schoolers that are taking midterms. They've got, potentially they're done with them, but if they have a couple more days left, hang in there, and good luck with everything you have going on. Certainly also wanted to, just say to Mr. McDonald's family that you're certainly in our hearts, and we're thinking of you quite a bit. So very grateful for the McDonald's. Last thing, and certainly it's been a heavy night, and I was kind of debating whether this topic was worth bringing up because it seems fairly trivial, but I think I will. I've heard a few comments recently regarding e-scooters on our middle school campuses, particularly around Folsom Middle School. So a couple of things with that. One is I want to make it very clear, I don't think it's the board's job to make any decisions about whether e-scooters should be allowed on campuses or not. But it is, I think, a bit of an issue. If any of you drive by Folsom Middle when school's getting out, there's some very unsafe activity on those scooters. They can go up to 30 miles an hour or more. I've had several parents talk about how dangerous they feel around them. I actually just recently found out that you're not even allowed to be on one of these unless you have a license or a learner's permit, which was a bit shocking to me. So again, I don't know that this should necessarily be certainly not a board decision. I'm not even sure it should be a school policy decision, but I did want to ask the superintendent if we've had any discussions with law enforcement or with the city council around this issue, so that maybe we can be working with them to provide some platform for them to be providing education, if not just enforcing the actual rules of the city, if I may ask.
Yes, and that's a really good question, because again, safety of our students is our priority. We did learn recently, because you had asked the question earlier this week about, what is there a law, and are those laws being enforced? And there is California Vehicle Code that addresses any kind of a motorized bike or an electric scooter. And I just recently saw the chart that Folsom PD has on their website. And I did ask the city manager, is there a campaign that maybe we could partner on? Because not only do we have a law, but we're not seeing that it's being enforced. because, we see students younger than 15 and a half that might be writing them. And it may not be, on the campus during instructional day, but it could be, afterwards. It could be during a football game. I've heard different reports too. So I think our best plan is to partner with our law enforcement on the campaign that they've already started. It's on, I just discovered today, it's on their website. Did you get a text? Oh, that's good. And then whatever messaging we can do as a district to reinforce what the law is, so we can doubly get that message out to our community alongside our law enforcement partners. But, the questions raised a lot of awareness that, there is a law, and are we enforcing, not we, but we, as parents and community, we could help support it.
Good. Well, I appreciate that. And I know there has been some communication from the schools. I believe maybe Dr. Daniels, like I had seen, had sent out some info. And I hesitate to be the old man on the lawn, but I definitely don't want to see a kid get hit by a car on a scooter or have his friend on the back of a scooter and crash. So whatever we can be doing around that, I think it would be worth working with our community partners and seeing if there is a way that we can be involved, but also really allow people to help. I would also just encourage, if there are parents that are concerned about this, as the ones that have talked with me, I think it would be wise to talk with the city council, make sure you're communicating with them if you're seeing this as an issue, because probably really that's where ultimately we'd want to see some change taking place. So that's it. I appreciate the communication you had with law enforcement. And if, I would love it, just as we do have updates on where we are with that campaign, being able to educate folks, if you could give us some periodic updates, would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. As a board member, we often hear, we get emails, usually through the superintendent's office, when a retired teacher or staff member, beloved teacher passes away. It's which is obviously very impactful by itself, but when you have a beloved current teacher or staff member pass away, it's particularly devastating. So, our hearts definitely go out to the McDonald family and all the students and colleagues of Michelle McDonald. So, I just wanted to report on a couple of things. First, last week, I went on a tour of Riverview STEM with the superintendent and FCEA President Sansenbach, as well as student board member Merrill. Thank you for coming. I can't say enough about the great program and staff at Riverview STEM. It's a wonderful school to visit. I highly recommend it, staff or anybody to go and take a tour of it. It's what they're doing there is remarkable. And the one thing that I particularly noticed, because it's something I've been keeping an eye on probably for the last 3 years, when I was touring elementary schools 3-4 years ago, I was noticing the disconnect that was happening between male students and the engagement in the classroom. It was fairly pronounced, where many times I saw boy students looking at their shoes while the teachers were teaching, and the female students were very engaged. And it's something that I started to, look into, because I was like, well, that's weird. And then and it was not just one school, it was school after school. And that's part of why, I started to advocate for what I didn't realize was out there at the time, which was the boy crisis. But at Riverview STEM, I didn't see any of that. Every student was engaged. Every student was engaged. It was remarkable. And we stepped into, I don't know, maybe 6 classrooms, And it was universal, classroom after classroom. And the teachers, I mean, I was amazed at how engaging the teachers were with the students. And, obviously it's a STEM focus, but it was a lot of hands-on, and I really enjoyed it. It was a wonderful, wonderful visit. And one, I hope we can, obviously not every school is going to be a STEM school, but we can take lessons that we learn from certain programs and perhaps apply it to other schools as well. And I think there's a lot we can learn by what's going on at Riverview STEM. Let's see. And then today, Board Member Larrett and I visited Folsom Lake College. We took a tour of there, and many thanks to Dr. Pimentel, who gave us the tour. It is a great institution that many of our graduates attend, both from Folsom and Rancho Cordova. Obviously, Folsom Lake College has a satellite campus in Rancho Cordova. I guess they have a satellite campus actually up in El Dorado County as well. But what a beautiful campus. And they're actually in the process of building a new academic building. It's going to be a science building. It's going to be 3 times the size of their current science building. So, perhaps a great location for many of our science people who graduate from our schools who have a desire in the STEM or fields to go and learn more about the opportunities in science. So, I understand, our collaborative efforts are ongoing between FCUSD and Folsom Lake College, and doing a lot of brainstorming about how our 2 great institutions can be even closer and working closer together. And I'm very eager to see how the progress on that develops. So that's all I have. That takes us to advanced planning. Our next board meeting, a very important board meeting. Actually, all of our board meetings are important, but this one has to do with facilities and bonds. And that is a special board meeting this coming Monday, October 9th. 6 p.m. start, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So obviously encourage parents to please come to that and share your observations of what we're looking at potentially doing in the area of facilities, and then obviously the bond as well. And then our next regular board meeting is on October 19th, 2023. My apologies to the Rancho Cordova Chamber of Commerce. I know they're celebrating their 60th anniversary that evening in a special gala. Unfortunately, our board members will not be able to attend that. And then, let's see, item B, 12-month calendar there for your reference. And then that takes us to item C, suggested future agenda items. Does anybody have anything they would like to add to future agenda items?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I don't know if this would be appropriate, but I would like to see maybe something about the cell phone policy that we have in middle schools, maybe an update on that.
I think that's coming, isn't it?
It is, yeah. November.
I'd have to look at the calendar, but it's either in November or December, but it is before the end of this first semester.
Is it possible to have the 4 principals from the middle school attend that update?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Is there anything else?
Okay. That's it, yeah.
Okay. Any other items? No? All right. Well, I guess unfortunately, we did not finish our closed session material, so we need to recess back into closed session. There will be no anything to report out So those in the public, well, you can stay if you want, but I suspect we will be gaveling out once we come back from closed session within 30 seconds. So, and then I obviously, as always, defer to the superintendent on which staff need to remain until there. So at this point, we will recess to closed session. Thank you all. All right, we're back from closed session. Let's see, that takes us to reporting out. Superintendent?
No action to report out of closed session.
All right, and then that takes us to adjournment. And tonight we'll adjourn in Michelle McDonald's memory. So unless there's any objection, we will adjourn by unanimous consent. Any objection? All right, we're adjourned.